Hey, Dad, Flicker said.
I was thinking about that day you bought us. Did you know what would happen? That we'd end up starting a revolution? No, I just knew I couldn't walk away. That's the story I tell other species, about how humans don't calculate kindness. They just do it, and somehow that changes everything, Ash added. Some species laugh. They say humans are naive, but others listen. They remember their own oppression, and they start to hope. Hope is dangerous, Copper said. It makes people brave, makes them fight back. Good, Storm rumbled. Galaxy needs more fighters, less slaves. Mist, quietest of all, simply leaned against David's side like she used to when she was small. Thank you for saving us, Dad. Thank you for showing us what love means. Syrah spoke, her voice carrying the weight of years and wisdom. Drakari have old prophecy. Says a warrior priest will rise from the ashes of our destruction and lead us to new home. For a long time I thought prophecy was false. Now I know truth. Prophecy was about all of us. You, she touched David's shoulder, and my children and every being who chooses freedom over fear. We are the prophecy. David looked at his family, biological and chosen, species mixed and hearts united. They'd built something impossible, a sanctuary that stood against slavery, against oppression, against the idea that some beings were worth less than others. Tomorrow his kids would leave again, going back to their important work across the galaxy. But tonight they were together. Tonight they were simply family, sitting under stars telling stories, dreaming of a future where no child would ever wear chains. You know what the best part is? David said. We're not done. This is just the beginning. Flicker grinned, his scales catching the starlight. Good. I've got so much more to do. They sat together as darkness deepened and the city lights below grew brighter, each light representing a life saved, a family reunited, a hope realized. Sanctuary Station gleamed like a promise, proof that one impulsive act of compassion could echo across a galaxy, changing everything forever. And in the quiet moment before they returned to their separate lives, David understood something profound. He'd thought he was saving them that day in the slave market. But really they'd saved him, given him purpose, family, hope, given him a reason to believe that broken things could be healed, that lost people could be found, that love was always stronger than law. His kids would carry that lesson wherever they went. And the galaxy, slowly and reluctantly, would learn what humanity had always known. Family wasn't biology, it was choice. And choosing love over fear again and again was how you changed the universe. The smell of recycled air mixed with unwashed bodies filled the lower deck of Station Outpost 7. David walked through the crowded marketplace. His military jacket zipped halfway up, trying to blend in with the other travelers and traders. 3 months of combat pay sat heavy in his account. Though it felt meaningless now, his entire squad was gone, buried on some forgotten moon. And here he was, alive and wandering through a station that didn't care. Alien vendors shouted in a dozen languages, selling everything from starship parts to exotic foods. David barely glanced at them. He had nowhere to be and nothing to spend his money on. The war had ended for him the day his friends died. Now he just drifted from place to place, waiting to feel something again. A crowd gathered ahead, voices rising in excitement. David pushed through, more out of boredom than curiosity. What he saw made his stomach turn. Cages lined the wall, each holding a different creature. This was a slave market, though the aliens running it called it a livestock auction to keep it barely legal. In the largest cage at the end, a dragon-like creature sat curled around 5 smaller versions of herself. Her scales, once probably bright blue, had faded to a dull gray. Chains wrapped around her neck and legs. The little ones huddled beneath her wings, their eyes wide with fear. Their ribs showed through their thin bodies. Drakari specimens, the auctioneer announced, a fat alien with too many arms. Prime breeding stock. The adult female is damaged, refuses training. But the hatchlings are young enough to be molded. I'll sell them separately for maximum profit. The mother dragon made a low sound, pulling her children closer. One of the little ones started crying, a high-pitched whimper that cut through the crowd noise. David found himself moving forward. He didn't plan it. His body just moved on its own. How much for all of them? He asked. The auctioneer looked at him, then laughed. Several aliens in the crowd joined in. Humans were newcomers to the galactic community. Barely 100 years in space. Most species saw them as primitive warmongers, useful as soldiers, but not much else. You want the whole lot, human? That's 40,000 credits. David knew that was triple what they were worth. The auctioneer thought he could scam an ignorant human. But David had 42,000 in his account. Every credit he'd saved from a decade of service. Money he'd planned to use to buy land somewhere quiet, maybe start a farm far from war and death. Deal, David said. The laughter died. The auctioneer's face shifted through several expressions before settling on greedy satisfaction. He processed the transaction quickly, probably afraid David would change his mind. Within minutes, David owned 6 living beings. The thought made him sick, but it was the only way to get them out of here. Station security helped transfer the cage to a loading bay where David's small transport ship waited. They dumped it roughly, making the hatchlings yelp. The mother growled, a deep rumbling sound that made even the security guards step back. Drakari might be enslaved, but they were still dangerous. Once David was alone with them, he approached the cage slowly. The mother dragon's eyes tracked his every movement. She positioned herself between him and her children, ready to fight even though she was chained and starving. "I'm not going to hurt you," David said softly. He knew she probably didn't understand human language, but tone mattered. "I'm getting you out of here." He opened the cage door. The mother tensed, confused. David stepped back, giving them space. He pointed to his ship's cargo hold, which he'd quickly filled with blankets and water containers. "Come on, it's safe." The mother didn't move. Why would she? Every alien she'd met had hurt her. One of the hatchlings, the smallest one with silver-tipped scales, peeked out from behind her mother's wing. David knelt down, making himself less threatening. "I know you don't trust me," he said. "I wouldn't either. But I promise I'm taking you somewhere better." He stood and walked to his ship, leaving the cage door open. Then he waited. Minutes passed. Finally, the mother dragon made a decision. She shuffled forward, chains dragging. Her children pressed against her sides. They moved into the cargo hold, and David sealed the door behind them, keeping it transparent so they could see out. During the 3-day journey to New Terra, David didn't try to touch them or force interaction. He slid food through a small hatch twice a day. Medical supplies too, though the mother wouldn't use them while he watched. At night, he heard her singing to her children, a strange melodic sound that made his chest ache. It reminded him of his own mother, dead these 15 years. New Terra was a young colony, mostly farmers and veterans looking for peace. David's homestead sat on 200 acres of grassland, backed by forest. He'd bought it a year ago, planning to retire here eventually. Now it would serve a different purpose. He landed his ship near the barn. Before releasing them, he spent hours converting the barn interior, removing everything that could be a weapon or a trap. He filled water troughs and piled dried meat in one corner. Then he opened the cargo hold and stepped way back. The mother emerged first, scanning for danger. The 5 hatchlings tumbled out after her, their legs shaky from days in cramped space. The open sky made them freeze. The smallest one started crying again. David walked backward toward his house. "The barn is yours. The land too, no cages, no chains." He went inside and watched through the window. The mother dragon stood in his yard for a long time, her head turning, nostrils flaring. She was checking for a trap, for hidden threats. When she found none, she herded her children into the barn. That night, David sat on his porch with a drink he didn't really want. He'd just spent every credit he owned on 6 aliens he couldn't communicate with. The galactic community considered them property. He technically owned them, which made him a slaver by human law. He could be arrested if the wrong official found out. But when he closed his eyes, he saw that smallest hatchling crying in the cage. He saw the mother's desperate attempt to protect her children with nothing but her own body. He'd spent 10 years killing in the name of protecting humanity. Maybe saving 6 lives could start to balance that scale. Inside the barn, the mother dragon watched the human's house through a gap in the wall. Her children slept in a pile behind her, their bellies full for the first time in months. She didn't understand what game this human was playing. Kindness was always a trap. She'd learned that lesson in Blood and Chains. But her smallest daughter, the one she feared would die soon, was breathing easier now. The others had stopped their constant whimpering. And this human had walked away, given them space, asked for nothing. She would wait. She would watch. And if he tried to hurt her children, she would kill him, even if it cost her own life. Rain drummed against the barn roof on their 3rd day at the homestead. David stood in the doorway, a bucket of fresh fish in his hands. The mother dragon sat in the far corner, her 5 children arranged around her. They watched him with varying degrees of fear and curiosity. "Breakfast," David said, setting the bucket down and stepping back. He'd established this routine. Bring food, leave it, retreat. Don't push. Don't demand anything. The smallest hatchling, the one with silver-tipped scales, stretched her neck toward the bucket. Her mother pulled her back with a gentle nudge. Only after David left the barn did they eat. He understood. Trust took time. Back in his house, David pulled up his computer and started researching. Drakari, the galactic database, had limited information. The species had been nearly wiped out 30 years ago when their homeworld was invaded. The survivors were scattered, most ending up in slavery because their size and strength made them valuable. They were intelligent, capable of learning multiple languages, and bonded fiercely with their clan members. One detail caught his attention. Drakari had a strict social structure. A clan leader, usually the strongest warrior, protected the family unit. Without a leader, they struggled. The mother dragon had no one. She was trying to be both protector and nurturer to 5 growing children, all while traumatized and alone. David closed the file. He wasn't a clan leader. He was just a broken soldier who'd made an impulse decision. But maybe that was enough for now. The days fell into a pattern. David maintained his distance but made sure they had everything they needed. He fixed the barn roof properly. He built a larger water system. He brought different foods, learning which ones they preferred. The hatchlings, he noticed, had distinct personalities. The largest male had dark green scales and watched everything with careful eyes. He was the protector of his siblings, always positioning himself between them and potential danger. David started thinking of him as Ash, after his coloring. A female with bright copper-colored scales spent hours examining everything in the barn, figuring out how things worked. She'd learned to operate the water pump by the 2nd week. Copper seemed fitting for her. Another male, slightly smaller than Ash, had storm gray scales and an aggressive posture. He growled whenever David came near. Storm. The silver-tipped female was Mist, delicate and quiet. She tired easily, and David worried about her health. The youngest male had scales that seemed to shift colors in the light, flickering between blue and gold. He was the curious one, always wandering to the edges of the barn, peeking outside. Flicker 3 weeks after their arrival, Mist collapsed. David was bringing lunch when he heard the mother's distressed cry. He dropped the food and ran into the barn without thinking. Mist lay on her side, breathing in shallow gasps. Her siblings huddled around her, making worried sounds. The mother dragon looked at David, and for the first time there was something other than hostility in her eyes. Desperation. "Okay," David said, forcing himself to stay calm. "Okay, I can help. But you have to let me close." He ran to his house and grabbed his medical kit. Veterinary supplies, too, meant for farm animals, but better than nothing. When he returned, the mother hadn't moved. She watched as David knelt beside Mist. The little dragon's fever was dangerously high. David dampened cloth and laid it across her scales. He checked her over gently, finding old injuries that hadn't healed properly. Infections from the slave pens. He'd seen similar things in war zones. Injuries left untreated until they became life-threatening. "I need to give her medicine," David said, holding up a syringe. "It will help with the infection." The mother made a low rumbling sound. Not a growl. Something else. She touched Mist gently, then moved aside, giving David space. It was permission. David worked through the night. He administered antibiotics, managed the fever, cleaned wounds that should have been treated months ago. The other hatchlings watched silently. Their mother stayed close, ready to intervene if David hurt her child, but letting him work. By dawn, Mist's breathing had steadied. The fever broke. She opened her eyes and made a weak chirping sound. Her siblings pressed close, and their mother sang that melodic tune David had heard before. David sat back, exhausted. The mother dragon looked at him for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She bowed her head slightly, just a small dip, but unmistakable. "You're welcome," David said softly. After that night, things changed. The mother dragon, who David learned was named Sira through careful attempts at communication, no longer retreated when he approached. The hatchlings started exploring beyond the barn. Flicker was the bravest, often following David around the property at a distance. Sira began to talk, using a mixture of her own language and broken human words she was learning. Her voice was deeper than David expected, musical like her singing. She told him fragments of her story, how she'd been a warrior, how she'd watched her clan die, how she'd been captured while protecting her eggs, forced to hatch them in chains, how she'd been sold again and again, each owner trying to break her spirit. "Why you buy us?" she asked one evening. They sat outside the barn watching the sunset. The hatchlings played nearby, chasing each other through the tall grass. It was the first time David had seen them act like children. "I don't know," David admitted. "I saw you protecting them and I couldn't walk away." "Humans strange," Sira said. "Other species, they see Drakari as things, tools, weapons. You see family. That's what you are. A family." Sira made a clicking sound, her version of a thoughtful hum. "You have family." "Had. They're gone now. My parents, my sister, my squad, all gone. You understand loss?" "Yeah, I do." They sat in silence, two damaged souls finding unexpected common ground. Sira's scales had started to regain their color, shifting from dull gray to deep blue. The hatchlings were filling out, growing stronger. Ash had started helping David with farm work, using his strength to move heavy equipment. Copper had dismantled and reassembled David's old tractor, somehow making it run better. Storm was less aggressive, though still wary. Mist grew healthier each day, her silver scales gleaming, and Flicker, the youngest, barely left David's side anymore. He followed the human everywhere, chattering in his own language, asking endless questions that David answered as best he could. One afternoon, Flicker got his tail caught in the fence near the northern field. His cry brought David running. The little dragon was panicking, pulling against the wire, making it worse. David climbed over and carefully untangled him, checking for injuries. "You're okay," David said, holding the shaking hatchling. "I've got you. You're safe." Flicker buried his face against David's chest and cried, not from pain but from fear and relief. And in his own language, mixed with the human words he'd learned, he said something that made the world stop. "Dad. Dad, help." David froze. He looked up and saw Sira standing nearby, her eyes wide. The other hatchlings had stopped playing. They all stared. "What did he say?" David asked, though he'd understood the word clearly enough. Sira approached slowly. "Drakari hatchlings, they feel soul bond. When they find true parent, not birth parent, but heart parent, they know. They call them father or mother. Cannot be forced. Cannot be faked. Flicker chose you." David looked down at the little dragon in his arms, still trembling, still holding tight. Something inside his chest broke open. Something that had been sealed shut since his squad died. Tears surprised him, running down his face before he could stop them. "I don't know how to be a dad," he whispered. Sira made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You already are." Summer heat settled over New Terra like a blanket. 2 months had passed since that day Flicker first called David Dad. The word had spread among the other hatchlings. Within a week, they all used it, each in their own way. Ash said it with respect. Copper with casual affection. Storm still hesitated, but it slipped out when he was excited or scared. Mist whispered it like a prayer, and Flicker said it constantly, attached to every sentence. David's small homestead had transformed into something alive. The hatchlings were everywhere. Copper had claimed the workshop, surrounding herself with tools and half-built machines. Ash worked the fields alongside David, his strength making the harvest easier. Storm hunted in the forests, bringing back game. Mist tended a garden she'd planted, growing herbs with medicinal properties. Flicker remained David's shadow, learning everything the human did. Sira watched it all with cautious wonder. Her warrior's instincts still screamed that this peace couldn't last. Nothing good stayed. But her children laughed now. They played. They learned. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were living. She and David had developed an easy partnership. He taught her more human language. She taught him about Drakari culture. They shared the work of raising 5 energetic hatchlings. It wasn't romantic, nothing like that, but it was deeper than friendship. 2 parents united in protecting their found family. One evening, while the hatchlings slept, Sira and David sat outside as usual. She'd been quieter than normal all day. "Something wrong?" David asked. Sira flexed her wings, a nervous habit. "I need tell you about Drakari bonds, about what Flicker did." I've been reading about it. The soul bond between hatchlings and chosen parents. Reading not enough. You need understand fully. Sira turned to face him. Drakari adult can bond once in lifetime. Only once. To clan leader, to mate, to chosen family. Bond cannot break. Is deeper than your marriage, stronger than your blood ties. When we bond forever. Okay, David said slowly, not sure where this was going. I not bonded yet. Kept myself apart, even in slavery, because bond is sacred. Cannot be forced. Must be choice. She paused, her eyes meeting his. But my children bonded to you, all 5. They chose you as father. In Drakari culture, this means something important. What does it mean? Means I must make choice too. Bond with you as clan leader or separate from children. Cannot be half family. Not in our way. David's stomach tightened. I would never separate you from them. I know, but Galaxy not care what you want. Law says you own us. Better humans than others, yes, but still ownership. Only way to change this, only way to protect children forever, is if I bond with you. Make true clan. Then galactic law must recognize bonded Drakari cannot be property, cannot be separated, is ancient law, older than most spacefaring species. You don't have to do that for legal protection. I'll figure something else out. Sira made her laughing sound. You not understand. I not doing for legal protection. I doing because I choose. You saved us. You gave freedom. You became father to my children even though cost you everything. You are worthy. Before David could respond, lights appeared in the sky. A ship, coming in fast and low. David's military training kicked in. He stood every sense alert. The ship wasn't broadcasting standard approach signals. It landed hard in the field beyond the house, engines still hot. Get the hatchlings, David said. Into the safe room. Now. Sira was already moving. She roared, a sound that brought all 5 children running. They'd practiced this. Emergency protocols. Within minutes, the hatchlings were sealed in the reinforced basement David had built for exactly this situation. Sira returned to his side, her warrior's stance reminding David that she'd been a fighter before slavery broke her. The ship's door opened. A reptilian alien stepped out, flanked by 4 armed guards. David recognized the species. Traitors. Slavers when they could get away with it. The alien smiled, too many teeth showing. I am Talvin, he said in perfect human language. I believe you have my property. David's hand moved to the gun at his hip. I don't have anyone's property. Just my family. Talvin pulled out a data pad. According to Galactic Trade Commission records, 6 Drakari specimens were illegally transferred. The original seller did not have proper authorization. The sale is void. The specimens must be returned. The sale was legal. I have the receipts. From an unlicensed dealer. Irrelevant. Talvin's smile grew. I represent the legal owner. You have improved their condition significantly. Very valuable now. I'm authorized to compensate you 2,000 credits for your trouble. David laughed, though nothing was funny. 2,000, I paid 40. Not my problem, human, you made bad deal. Give me the Drakari or I involve colonial authority. Sira stepped forward. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of a warrior priestess, not a slave. I am Sira, daughter of the Firewing clan. By what right do you claim ownership of free beings? Talvin barely looked at her. By galactic law. You are Drakari. Drakari are classified as dangerous fauna. Ownership is legal and proper. Then you fight me for them, Sira said. Old law. Combat rights. You win, you take us, you lose, you leave forever. Don't be ridiculous, I'm not fighting you, I have legal authority. Talvin gestured to his guards. Take them. David's gun cleared leather before the guards moved 3 steps. First one who tries goes home in a bag. The guard stopped. They were mercenaries, not soldiers. They hadn't signed up to fight a human veteran who looked very comfortable with his weapon. Humans had a reputation, crazy and violent, unwilling to back down even when they should. This one looked especially crazy. Talvin's expression darkened. You threaten me? I have dozens of ships. I have connections. You have nothing. I have family, David said, and I have this. He pulled out his own datapad, showing the screen to Talvin. While you were talking, I sent a message to the colonial governor, the human military, and about 30 news networks. You're being recorded right now, every word. Want to try to kidnap 6 beings from a human veteran on human soil? See how that plays on galactic news? Talvin's face went through several colors. This isn't over. Yeah, it is. Get off my land. The slaver and his guards retreated to their ship. It took off hard, engines screaming. David kept his gun out until they were gone. Then his hands started shaking. Adrenaline dump. He'd been running on pure instinct. Sierra touched his shoulder gently. You made enemy. I made a lot of enemies in the war. One more won't matter. He will return. With more guards. With legal documents. With force. Then we'll deal with it. David looked at her. You said something about bonding with me before we were interrupted. Yes, but you need understand. Bond is forever. You become my clan leader, I become your clan bonded. In Drakari culture, this means I fight for you, die for you if needed. You do same for me, for children, is serious. David thought about his squad, the people he'd fought beside, the bond they'd shared. He understood that kind of loyalty. Show me how. Sierra led him to the center of the yard. She pressed her clawed hand to his chest over his heart. Then she spoke in her own language. Words. That sounded like singing in fire and the clash of swords. When she finished, she cut her palm with a claw and pressed it to David's hand, mixing their blood. We are clan, she said. Forever bound. No law can break this. No force can separate us. We are family in deepest sense. David felt something shift inside him. Not magic, not exactly, but a rightness, a completion. We are family. Later, when the hatchlings emerged from the safe room, they sensed the change immediately. Flicker bounced around them both, chattering excitedly. The others moved closer, forming a circle around their parents. Ash bowed his head. Copper clicked happily. Storm relaxed his aggressive stance. Mist started crying tears of joy. They stood together under the stars, 7 beings from different worlds, bound by choice and love and desperation. A family that shouldn't exist according to galactic law. A family that would have to fight to stay together. But tonight they were whole. 3 days of peace followed Talvin's visit. 3 days when David actually believed they might escape the confrontation. Then the official message arrived on his datapad during breakfast. Colonial Governor Lisa forwarded it with a single line. We need to talk now. David left Sierra with the hatchlings and drove his transport to the Colonial Administration building. Governor Lisa met him at the door, her face grim. She was ex-military herself, a decorated captain who'd retired to help build New Terra into something worth defending. Come in, she said, leading him to her office. Once the door closed, she poured 2 glasses of whiskey, even though it was barely 10 in the morning. You've stirred up trouble. I know. No, you really don't. Lisa pushed a glass toward him. That alien Talvin has connections, real ones. He filed a formal complaint with the Galactic Trade Commission. They're sending enforcement officers for 6 refugees, for 6 classified dangerous fauna that were illegally transferred. That's how they're framing it. And legally, they're right. The seller didn't have proper authorization. Your purchase doesn't count. David drank the whiskey in one gulp. What are my options? Surrender them peacefully and hope for compensation. That's what they're officially offering. And unofficially, Lisa refilled his glass. Fight, refuse. Make this a diplomatic incident. Force the galactic community to acknowledge that humanity doesn't follow their slavery laws. You're saying I should start an interstellar conflict over my family? I'm saying humanity has been pushing back against galactic norms since we joined this community. We don't accept their caste systems. We don't follow their honor codes. We treat all intelligent species as equals, which pisses off half the galaxy. Maybe it's time we pushed back on the slavery issue too. That's easy to say when it's not your family being threatened. Lisa smiled, sharp and dangerous. I called in favors. There are 37 human veterans within 2 days' travel of here. Former soldiers. All of them angry about how aliens treat other beings. They're coming. With weapons, David stared at her. You're going to start a war. No, I'm going to make a statement. If the Galactic Commission wants those Drakari, they'll have to go through 36 heavily armed humans who are very protective of their own. And David, the moment you bonded with Sira, the moment those hatchlings called you Dad, you made them ours. Human. Family. The Commission has thousands of ships, and humans have a reputation for being insane enough to fight impossible battles. Sometimes reputation is enough. Lisa leaned back in her chair. But I need your permission. This is your family. Your choice. If you want to surrender them and avoid the conflict, I'll respect that. David thought about Mist, so fragile, finally healthy. About Copper's brilliant mind, constantly creating. About Storm's slowly healing trust. About Ash's quiet strength. About Flicker calling him Dad with absolute faith. About Sierra choosing to bond with him. When are they coming? He asked. The enforcement ship arrives in 4 days. Then we have 4 days to prepare. Word spread through the colony fast. Some families chose to leave temporarily, not wanting to be caught in potential violence, but most stayed. They'd come to New Terra to build something different, something better than the corruption and inequality of Earth and the coldness of galactic civilization. If they ran now, they'd always be running. The veterans arrived one by one. David knew some of them from the service. Others were strangers united by shared values. They set up defensive positions around his homestead, turning his peaceful farm into a fortress. The hatchlings watched with wide eyes as humans with scars and hard expressions dug trenches and calibrated weapons. Dad, Flicker said, pressing against David's leg. What happening? People are trying to take you away. We're making sure they can't. Why they want take us? How do you explain slavery to a child? How do you tell them that beings exist who see them as property? Because they're bad people who don't understand what family means. Sira stood on the barn roof watching the preparations. Her warrior's heart understood battle. She'd fought in wars before her capture. But this was different. These humans were preparing to fight for her children. Not for territory or resources or honor. Just for the right of her family to stay together. Ash climbed up beside her. At 4 months old, he was already nearly her size. Mother, we should help. We can fight. No, you stay safe. If battle comes, you take siblings and run. I won't leave you. I won't leave Dad. Sira looked at her eldest son, seeing the determination in his eyes. He'd grown so much in these months of freedom. All her children had. They'd gone from traumatized prisoners to confident young dragons. Losing that would destroy them. If we fight, she said slowly, we fight as clan. Together. All of us. The enforcement ship arrived exactly on schedule. It was smaller than David expected, sleeker. A diplomatic vessel, not a warship. They were trying to keep this quiet, handle it as a legal matter rather than a military one. Talvin emerged first, flanked by 6 Galactic Commission officials. Behind them came a dozen mercenaries, different species, all armed. They stopped at the property line, staring at the defensive positions and armed humans. One of the officials, a tall alien with blue skin and too many eyes, stepped forward. I am Commissioner Rail. We are here under legal authority to retrieve stolen property. Surrender the Drakari and no action will be taken against you. Governor Lisa stepped up beside David. The Drakari are not property. They are free beings under human protection. Your species is not recognized as having authority over Galactic Trade Commission classifications. Step aside or face sanctions. Sanction this. The voice came from behind them. An older man, gray-haired and scarred, stepped forward. He wore no uniform, but everything about him screamed military commander. I'm General Roberts, retired. But I still have friends in active service. You try to take those dragons, and I personally guarantee humanity will make your commission's life very difficult. Commissioner Rail's expression didn't change. You cannot threaten us with violence over a legal dispute. Not threatening violence. Threatening paperwork, bureaucracy. Humans are very good at those. We'll tie up every trade commission operation in human space with regulations, inspections, legal challenges. We'll make your job impossible, or you can leave now and we all forget this happened. Unacceptable. We have authority. David had been quiet, letting others talk, but now he stepped forward. Commissioner Rail, right? Let me tell you something about humanity. We're new to your galactic community. We don't understand half your rules, but we understand family. We understand loyalty. and we really understand how to fight dirty when someone threatens what we love. Crude threats from a primitive species. Not a threat, a promise. You want those dragons? You'll get them. But first you'll have to kill me. Then you'll have to kill 37 veterans behind me. Then you'll have to kill every colonist on New Terra who believes in freedom. And when you're done, you'll have to explain to the rest of humanity why you slaughtered a colony over 6 refugees. They are not refugees. They are property. Sira's voice cut through the tension like a blade. She stepped forward, her full size making the aliens step back. I am Sira, warrior priestess of the Firewing clan. I invoke ancient right. Trial by combat. You challenge my clan bond, you fight me for it. Commissioner Rail looked at her with something like pity. The old laws are dead. Your people are dead. Your rights mean nothing. Then you are cowards who hide behind false laws because you fear true challenge. That struck a nerve. Several of the mercenaries shifted uncomfortably. Species in the galactic community valued honor, at least in theory. Being called cowards stung. Talvin pushed forward, his greed overriding caution. Enough talking, take them. I'll pay triple to your mercenaries. The mercenaries looked at each other, then at the humans with guns, then at Sira, fully grown and furious, then at the 5 young dragons emerging from the barn, standing with their mother. The tactical math didn't work out. One of the mercenaries, a soldier with red scales, lowered his weapon. I fight for money, not for slavery. Not against children. Find someone else, another mercenary followed. Then another. Within a minute, only 2 remained, and they looked deeply uncomfortable. Commissioner Rail's composure finally cracked. This is illegal. All of this, you cannot ignore galactic law. Governor Lisa smiled. Watch us. This is human territory. Our laws apply here. And our law says intelligent beings can't be owned. So either the Drakari are animals with no rights, in which case they can't be property anyway, or they're intelligent beings, in which case slavery is illegal. Choose. This will have consequences. Everything does. Now get off our planet. The standoff lasted another 10 minutes. Threats and counter-threats, legal language and military posturing. But eventually, the commission officials retreated to their ship. Talvin screamed promises of revenge. The mercenaries left without payment. When the ship lifted off, silence fell over the homestead. Then Flicker started cheering. The other hatchlings joined in. The humans laughed, tension breaking into relief. David felt his legs shake. They'd won. Barely. Through bluff and luck and humanity's reputation for insanity. But they'd won. Sira pressed her head against his shoulder. We made history today. Drakari and humans standing together. Galaxy will not forget. News of the confrontation spread across human colonies within hours. Within days, it reached the wider galactic community. Reactions varied wildly. Some species applauded humanity's stand. Others condemned it as dangerous precedent. The Galactic Commission stayed officially silent, though behind closed doors they were furious. David tried to return to normal life. The veterans stayed for another week, helping repair the defensive positions they'd built, then slowly drifted back to their own lives. General Roberts stayed longer, forming an unlikely friendship with Sira. They traded war stories, finding common ground in shared warrior culture. But normal life felt different now. The hatchlings had seen violence prepared even if it never came. They understood that safety was fragile. They trained harder with Sira, learning combat techniques from their mother and tactics from David. Even gentle Mist insisted on learning to defend herself. 2 months after the standoff, a ship landed without warning. This time, David's alarm systems gave him advance notice. He had weapons ready when the door opened. Then he lowered them in shock. 5 Drakari emerged, adults battered and scarred, looking around with desperate hope. The largest one, a male with crimson scales, spoke in the Drakari language. Sira answered, her voice cracking with emotion. What's going on? David asked. Sira turned to him, tears streaming down her face. They heard about us, about free Drakari living with humans. They escaped slavery and came here. David, they want sanctuary. The crimson male switched to broken human language. We heard story. Dragon Mother and her children protected by human warrior. Bonded clan. We have nowhere else, please. David looked at his homestead. It was already crowded with 7 dragons. Adding 5 more seemed impossible. But he remembered standing in That slave market. Seeing Sira and her children in chains, knowing he couldn't walk away. "You're welcome here," he said. More came. Over the next month, 3 more Drakari arrived, then a family of 4, each with stories of escape and hope. David's farm transformed into a settlement. Other colonists helped build structures. The Drakari worked hard, contributing their strength and skills. A community formed, mixed species united by choice rather than law. The Galactic community watched nervously. A Drakari settlement under human protection was unprecedented. Some saw it as beautiful. Others saw it as dangerous. Slave traders saw it as a threat to their business model. One evening, David sat with Sira on the hill overlooking their growing community. Lights from 24 buildings dotted the landscape. Drakari voices mixed with human ones, teaching each other language and culture. "Never imagined this," Sira said. "When I was in chains, I dreamed of death. Freedom seemed impossible, family seemed lost forever. Now I have both. We built something good here. Yes, but it makes target. More slaves escape, slavers lose money. They will come for us eventually. Let them come, we're ready." Sira made her clicking laugh. "You talk like Drakari warrior now. Always ready for fight. Learned from the best." Below them, Flicker played with the newly arrived hatchling, showing off the farm and explaining everything in rapid-fire chatter. The young dragon had appointed himself official greeter, taking his job seriously. Copper worked in an expanded workshop with 3 adult Drakari, designing better tools. Ash trained with former warriors, his skills growing daily. Storm led hunting parties into the forest. Mist ran a medical clinic treating injuries and illnesses for both species. "Children growing up," Sira observed. "Soon they be adults, need their own paths. They're only 8 months old. Drakari mature fast. In 2 years they be adults. Need think about their futures." David hadn't considered that. The hatchlings had been children for so long in his mind. But Ash was already taller than David, stronger than any human. Copper could disassemble and repair technology that baffled human engineers. They were growing up. "What do Drakari usually do when they reach adulthood?" he asked. "Leave clan, form own families, or stay, become warriors or teachers or builders. Depends on individual. But choice is theirs." Sira paused. "Except now, choices are different. Galaxy not accepting Drakari. Only safe places here with humans. Then we make more safe places. Other human colonies could host Drakari families. Build a network. You think humans would do this? Take in dangerous aliens? I think humans are tired of following rules that don't make sense. Most of us came to the colonies to escape the corruption back on Earth. We wanted something better. This could be it. Real integration, not the fake version the galactic community pretends to have." Sira leaned against him, a gesture of comfort and trust. "You dreamed big dreams for Broken Soldier. I learned from my kids, they dream big too. The attack came 3 months later, not from the Galactic Commission but from private mercenaries hired by a coalition of slave traders. 20 ships, over 200 armed soldiers landing in coordinated assault positions around the settlement. David's alarm woke everyone at dawn. He grabbed his rifle and ran outside. Sira was already there, fully armored in the battle gear she'd crafted from salvaged materials. The adult Drakari emerged from their homes, ready to fight. "Get the children to the shelters," David ordered. "Everyone else, defensive positions." But the hatchlings refused to hide. Ash stood beside his mother, towering and fierce. Copper had built defensive drones that now deployed around the settlement. Storm's fire breath could reach 300 meters. Mist had prepared medical stations. Even Flicker, smallest and youngest, had a role in the communication network. "We are warriors too," Ash said. "We fight for our home." The mercenaries advanced in professional formation. They had better weapons, better armor, better training. But they didn't have desperation. They didn't have families to protect. They were just doing a job. David had learned strategy in human military academies. Sira had learned it in Drakari war temples. Together they'd trained every defender in the settlement. When the mercenaries entered weapon range, they entered a killing field. Drakari fought from the air and ground, Humans used guerrilla tactics, hitting and fading. Copper's drones provided cover fire and reconnaissance. The battle lasted 4 hours, brutal and chaotic. David took a shot to the shoulder. Sira suffered burns from an energy weapon. 3 adult Drakari fell, though none died. 7 humans were injured, but the mercenaries broke. They'd expected an easy raid on refugees. They found hardened warriors defending their home. When their casualties hit 30%, they retreated to their ships and fled. The settlement celebrated, but the victory felt hollow. People had been hurt. Buildings burned. Children saw violence up close. Flicker cried after, shaking with fear and adrenaline. David held his youngest son, blood from his shoulder wound staining them both. "I'm sorry you had to see that." "We won," Flicker said, but his voice trembled. "Winning isn't always good. Sometimes it's just less bad than losing." Governor Lisa arrived the next day with a proposition. The Human Colonial Alliance had been watching. They wanted to make New Terra an official sanctuary world, legally protected by the full weight of human military. Any attack on the settlement would be treated as an attack on humanity itself. "It means we're drawing a line," Lisa explained, "telling the galaxy that we won't tolerate slavery anymore. Any freed slave who reaches human territory gets protection. This settlement becomes the symbol." "That makes us a target," David said. "You're already a target. This just means you'll have support." Sira listened to the translation, then spoke. "My people have saying, better to die standing than live kneeling. We accept." The declaration went out on every channel. New Terra was now Sanctuary Station protected by Human Colonial Alliance. The Galactic Commission protested. Several species threatened sanctions, but 3 smaller species, also victims of slavery, sent quiet messages of support. Change was starting, slowly, painfully. That night, David stood among his family, human and Drakari mixed together. The hatchlings, no longer really hatchlings, stood tall and proud. Sira's scales gleamed in the firelight. Around them, a community born from one impulsive act of compassion had become a beacon of hope. "You know what I just realized?" David said to Sira. "I came to the colonies to escape war. Instead, I started a new one." "Not war," Sira corrected. "Revolution. Small one, maybe. But revolution still. Think we can win?" "Already winning. We have family. We have home. We have hope. Everything else we figure out together." 5 years passed like a story being written in real time. Sanctuary Station grew from a settlement of 20 buildings to a thriving town of 300 structures. Humans and Drakari lived side by side, building something the galaxy had never seen before. True integration, not the segregated hierarchy that dominated galactic civilization. David stood at the window of his expanded home, watching the sunrise paint the town in gold and orange. His shoulder ached where he'd been shot, a permanent reminder of that first battle. There had been others since. Smaller skirmishes, legal battles, political pressure, but they'd survived each one, growing stronger. Sira entered the room, moving silently despite her size. Her scales had fully regained their deep blue color, almost glowing with health. "You wake early again. Still having the dreams?" "Sometimes. Less than before." The nightmares about his lost squad had faded over the years, replaced by new worries. Protecting his expanded family took all his energy. Children ready for today? I hope so. Today was graduation day at the academy they'd built. The first class of students, human and Drakari learning together, would receive their certifications in various fields. And leading that class were 5 young dragons David still thought of as hatchlings, even though they were adults now. The ceremony took place in the central plaza. Hundreds gathered, species mixed freely. David spotted General Roberts in the crowd, now a permanent resident serving as military advisor. Governor Lisa sat in the front row. Her term extended 3 times because no one else wanted the job of managing this revolutionary experiment. Ash was called first. At 5 years old, he stood nearly twice David's height, his dark green scales polished to perfection. He'd graduated with honors from the military tactical program and already accepted a position in the Colonial Defense Force, the first Drakari to serve officially in human military. "I dedicate this achievement to my father," Ash said in his deep voice. looking directly at David. Who taught me that strength means protecting those weaker, not dominating them? Copper came next, her bright scales gleaming under the sun. She'd mastered engineering and already filed 17 patents on new technologies. 3 human corporations were fighting over which one would hire her. My dad showed me that intelligence without compassion is worthless, she said. I build to help, not to profit. Storm accepted his certification in environmental management. He'd grown into his aggressive nature, channeling it into protecting wilderness areas from exploitation. His work tracking poachers had saved countless animals. I learned from my father that anger isn't weakness, Storm said. When directed properly, it becomes justice. Mist, still smaller than her siblings but healthy and strong, graduated from medical school. She'd already saved 3 lives in the settlement's clinic, her gentle touch and precise knowledge making her the preferred doctor for many residents. Dad taught me that healing is the truest form of strength, she said softly. Every life saved is a victory against death. Flicker was last. He'd studied education and xenopsychology, learning to bridge cultural gaps between species. He'd spent the last year teaching young Drakari and human children together, proving that prejudice wasn't natural but learned. My father showed me that family isn't blood, Flicker said, his voice clear and confident. It's choice. Every day we choose to be family. And I choose this forever. David felt tears running down his face and didn't bother hiding them. Sierra stood beside him, her wing touching his shoulder in comfort and pride. These children, found in a slave market and given freedom, had become leaders. After the ceremony, the celebration lasted into the night. Music played, mixing human and Drakari instruments into something entirely new. David found himself pulled into dozens of conversations, accepting congratulations, discussing the settlement's future. But late in the evening, he slipped away to the hill where he and Sierra often talked. She found him there as he knew she would. You did good work, she said, settling beside him. We did good work. I couldn't have done any of this alone. 5 years ago, I sat in cage waiting to die. Now I sit on hill watching my children become legends. Life is strange. Do you ever regret it? Bonding with me? Everything that came after. Sierra made her laughing sound. Regret? I regret nothing. Yes, life is harder now, more dangerous, more complicated. But is life, real life, not survival? My children are free. Other Drakari are free. We built something impossible. How could I regret? Movement below caught their attention. Flicker was walking up the hill carrying something. When he reached them, David saw it was a datapad. Sorry to interrupt, Flicker said, but I need to show you something. He activated the datapad, displaying an application. David read it slowly, his chest tightening. It was an application to the Galactic Education Initiative, a prestigious program that took students to study across different worlds. Flicker wanted to become a cultural ambassador, traveling the galaxy teaching about integration and freedom. You'd be gone for 2 years, David said. I know, but Dad, there are other settlements starting now. Other species taking in refugees. They need guidance. They need to know what we learned here. I can teach them. David looked at his youngest son, seeing the determination and hope in his eyes. This was what they'd fought for. Not just survival, but the chance to grow, to explore, to make a difference beyond their small corner of space. When do you leave? David asked. 3 months, if you approve. You don't need my approval. You're an adult now. I still want it. David pulled Flicker into a hug, feeling his son's warmth and strength. I'm so proud of you. Go change the galaxy. Over the next weeks, the other hatchlings revealed their plans too. Ash would join a human military unit patrolling the frontier. Copper accepted a position with a research facility, developing clean energy. Storm would lead expeditions into unexplored territories, mapping wilderness and protecting wildlife. Mist planned to study advanced medicine on one of the core worlds they were leaving. All 5 of them, going out into a galaxy that had once seen them as property, now as equals. It terrified David and filled him with pride in equal measure. The day before Flicker's departure, all 5 children gathered at the house one final time. They sat around the table where they'd eaten thousands of meals, where they'd laughed and argued and learned what family meant. I have something for each of you, David said, pulling out 5 small packages. Inside each was a piece of metal engraved with their names and a simple phrase, Sanctuary Station Clan. So you remember where home is, David said. No matter how far you go, they left one by one over the following months. Each departure was hard. Each goodbye felt like losing a piece of himself. But David had learned that love meant letting go, trusting that what you taught would keep them safe. 1 year after the graduations, David and Sierra stood on the hill again, watching the town that had become a city. New buildings were rising constantly. More refugees arrived weekly. Other species had joined now, not just Drakari, but smaller groups fleeing persecution. Sanctuary Station had become exactly what its name promised. "You think children are okay?" Sierra asked. She worried constantly, though she tried to hide it. "They're more than okay. Flicker sent a message yesterday. He's helping establish a new sanctuary settlement. Ash stopped a raider attack on a colony. Copper's energy design is being implemented across human space. Storm discovered a new species and protected their habitat. Mist saved a diplomat's life and started peace talks between two warring species. They do good work. They learned from the best." Sierra clicked thoughtfully. "We get old, you and I. What happens to Sanctuary Station when we gone? It goes on. That's the point. This isn't about us anymore. It's bigger than us." A ship descended toward the landing pad. David recognized the signature. His kids were coming home for the settlement's anniversary celebration. All 5 of them, returning together for the first time in months. They met at the house, grown and changed, but still fundamentally the same. Flicker was taller, his scales darker from exposure to different atmospheres. Ash carried himself with military precision. Copper had cut one of her claws in an engineering accident. Storm bore new scars from his expeditions. Mist moved with the calm confidence of an experienced healer. But when they saw David and Sierra, they transformed back into children, rushing forward with greetings and stories and laughter. They spent 3 days together, talking about their adventures, their challenges, their victories. They'd seen the galaxy and returned home wiser but not broken, strong but still kind. On the final evening before they left again, they gathered on the hill, all 7 of them watching the stars emerge. David thought about that day in the slave market, spending everything he had on an impulse. Best investment he ever made.